Hi, this is Professor Lewis here. Today we'll be talking about insulin and facts about insulin. So recently my student brought up to my attention that they're having a hard time understanding different kinds of insulin. So I decided to create this short PowerPoint presentation to help along with understanding and some facts about insulin. So on this slide you can see that we have two distinct groups of insulin. Group A is a human insulin, and group A includes regular short-acting insulin, intermediate acting insulin, which otherwise is called NPH, premixed human insulin, and group B, which is analog insulin made from other sources than human. And in that particular group we have rapid acting insulin, long-acting insulin, and premixed analog insulin. So when we're talking about insulin, usually we hear several characteristics that are specific for insulin. So one can hear nurses talking about onset, and onset is the length of the time before the insulin reaches the bloodstream and begins lowering the blood glucose. Second one is a peak time, and this is when this is the time during which insulin is at maximum strength in the terms of lowering the blood glucose. And then sometimes we hear about duration of insulin, and duration means how long the insulin continues to, how long it takes the insulin to continue to lower the blood glucose. The one thing that I wanted to mention also, you also probably heard sometimes we have to mix insulin, and usually the idea of mixing is clear to cloudy. Clear usually is short-acting insulin, and we mix in clear to cloudy, short-acting to intermediate acting, which is NPH insulin. And one thing that I want you to remember, you never ever mix Lantus, which is long-acting insulin. You don't mix Lantus with anything. Okay, so in this slide you can see how the characteristics of insulin come together with different kinds of insulin. And on the top you can see rapid-acting insulin. It onsets about 15 minutes after the injection. It peaks 1 hour after the injection, and it lasts 2 to 4 hours in the bloodstream. The short-acting, also called regular insulin, onset, which means it starts working 30 minutes after the injection. It peaks 2 to 3 hours after the injection, and it lasts 3 to 6 hours in the bloodstream. Intermediate acting starts 2 to 4 hours after the injection. It peaks 4 to 12 hours after the injection, and it lasts in the bloodstream 12 to 18 hours. The long-acting insulin onsets several hours after injection. It does not peak, and it lasts in the bloodstream for some time longer than 24 hours. So here we're going to be talking about the different ways of administering the insulin, and we will start with just talking about the most frequently used way of insulin administration, which is needle and syringe. And as you know, you should draw a dose of the insulin from the vial or the bottle into the syringe, and before you do so, you should clean the top of the vial with alcohol and dial up the needle to the amount of the insulin that you will be redrawing. So for example, if you need 10 units, you're going to pull the syringe to the 10 units, and you're going to push the 10 units of air into the bottle, and then you're going to redraw the 10 units of insulin. Insulin was the fastest when it's injected in the belly, but sites should be rotated, and here on this slide you see different rotations that are potential sites available for injection. Other injection spots include the thigh, buttocks, and upper arm. You need to remember that the amount and the time or frequency of administration of insulin may vary based on what the client needs. You always wanted to check, like I mentioned to you before, the expiration date on the bottom on a bottle, and make sure that what you are using is not expired. The second way of administering insulin is the pen. And the pen just looks like a pen, but has the needle that you can attach to the point of to the top of the pen. Some insulin pens come filled with the insulin and are disposable. Others have a room for an insulin cartridge that you will be inserting into the pen on the lower side. The insulin pens cost more than a needle and syringe, but for many of the clients, insulin pens are easier to use. Things to remember with insulin pen: before you administer the dose and after you attach the needle, make sure that you dial 2 units on a dial on the bottom of the pen and inject the 2 units into the needle. That's helping with priming of the needle and getting rid of all any air that potentially is sitting there. Then you're gonna dial up the number of units that you wanted to administer. For example, 10, you will dial up to 10. You're gonna clean the insertion site with alcohol. We're gonna wait until it's dry, and then you're gonna administer the insulin. With the pen, you should hold the needle in place for approximately 10 seconds. That is the best way, and it's allowing the insulin to get to the tissue as it's supposed to. You may also have seen pumps. Pumps are smaller machine that gives a small steady dose of insulin through the day, and those kind of pumps are usually outside of the body, and they are sitting either on a belt or in a pocket or a pouch. The insulin pumps converts to a small plastic tube and a very small needle connects. You insert the needle under the patient or client's skin, and it stays in place for several days. Insulin then pumps from the machine through the tube into the patient's or client body 24 hours a day. This pump is usually the pumps also are capable of administering an extra dose during the meal time. Another type of pump is the one that has no tubes and it's attaching directly to the skin, much as a self-adhesive pod. The 2 newer ways of insulin injection is inhaler, and that's another way to take the insulin by breathing powder of insulin from inhaler device to your mouth. The insulin goes directly through the lungs and moves quickly through the bloodstream. Inhaled insulin is only for adults and type 1 or adults with type 1 or type 2 diabetics. So you will not see inhalers in the kids or younger adults. The other way of administering medication, the insulin, is jet injector. And this device sends a fine spray of insulin into the skin at the high pressure instead of using needle to deliver the insulin. The downside to jet injector: skin usually itself does not really take an insulin very well, so the administration is not as accurate as with other ways of administering insulin. In the last slide, we will be talking about new technologies that are currently available or in development for administration of the insulin. Some information about storing of the insulin. Insulin is like a protein dissolved in water, so you can think about it as something like a soup or broth. Like any other protein, it can spoil, so keep it cold helps it keep it from spoiling. We try to keep insulin from the heat and light, and any light that you don't store And any insulin that you don't store in the refrigerator should be kept as cool as possible, so between 56 and 80 Fahrenheit. We never wanted to let the insulin freeze. If insulin freezes, we should not be using it and we should be discarded, even though it's thaw. We should keep unused bottles, cartridges, and pens of insulin in the refrigerator between temperature of 36 to 46 Fahrenheit. If stored properly, this will be good until the expiration date listed on the insulin. Insulin cartridges and pens currently used can be kept in the room temperature between 56 and 80 Fahrenheit. Some things that I would like you to remember: you always wanted to check client glucose level prior to insulin administration. You always draw clean insulin into the syringe before drawing the cloudy insulin. Okay? Only insulin from the same sources should be mixed together. So remember that chart when I told you group A and group B? So only insulin from group A can be mixed with insulin with group A, and insulin with group B can be mixed with insulin from group B. So for example, humulin R and humulin N are both human sources and can be mixed. You always have to check the expiration date of the insulin. And remember to follow 5 rights of medication administration. Okay, here's some more guidelines about expiration of insulin. So an open insulin bottle, cartridge, or a pen is only good for a limited amount of time. So Lantus should be discarded 28 days after you started to use it. Humalog should be discarded 28 days after you started to use it. NPH should be discarded 42 days, and pens and cartridges 14 days after they start to be used. All insulin should be discarded when they reach the expiration date listed on the medicine. So in this slide, we're going to be talking about new technology that is out there to currently either being developed or maybe it's in the first stages of being tried out. But the first one is the implantable insulin pump, which is in similar function to external pump, but it's implanted under client's skin. This particular device allows the client to experience less hypoglycemia than usually it happens with external pumps. This device requires frequent medical attention, including surgery to implant it, and a frequent unclotting is a major surgical procedure. Second one will be artificial pancreas. So artificial pancreas are surgically implanted devices that measure the blood and automatically adjust the insulin dose accordingly. This particular device, client can release bolus injections via remote control. For the future version, could also include a chip-based internal sensor to automatically activate the pump. And lastly, insulin patch. The insulin patch delivers continuous dose of insulin through the skin, usually with a very fine needle that penetrates the skin. This particular device also uses electricity to drive the insulin through the skin. Works a little bit like a nicotine patch that smokers use to help them quit. And the drawbacks of this insulin administration is that it does not pass through the skin easily, just like I told you with the insulin infuser. So that's it. I hope that this PowerPoint was helpful for you guys, and shoot me an email or see me and let me know if there is anything else that I can do to help. Thanks. Thank you for listening.